Hello, hello. Here we are again, coming to you from Broadcast Team Alpha. We're coming to you from 44 different platforms around the world, and my name is Augie, and my co-host Laurie just couldn't be here tonight, so I guess we'll have to suffer through without her. She would really enjoy this because this is right up her alley about healing and the future of medicine. And we are also transmitting on the Conscious Awakening Network. You gotta go over there and see those guys because they have close to 50 different shows over there that talk about all the stuff that we are not supposed to know about, but both you and me need to know about. So go over there and have a look at them, and you can find them at consciousawakeningnetwork.org. And we are there. In fact, we're streaming live over there right now and in many other different places. So I also want to let you know how you can get in touch with me. You can go to our website at broadcastteamalpha.com and you can send us a note, and Nori and I will get the email and we will get back to you. Whatever you need to have done or figured out, we'll see what we can help you. And I also want to let you know that we have created a spiritual think tank. And we do this on Mondays and also on Mondays and Wednesday evening. But Sundays are the best days because we do in a meditative state. We reach into the quantum existence and we get a hold of things that we have already placed there and pull it in to the physical existence with us. Sometimes it seems like we are creating out of seemingly nothing, which physically we actually are. But it comes from the unified field where everything past, present, and future is, and we bring it home here. You should come and visit sometime. We do incredible things, so send us an email to themastermindconnection@gmail.com. Just just send us the email and I'll send you an information package and a link so you can come and check it out and see if this is something that you want to do. You're going to have fun doing it. And I want to introduce the guest to you. We, in fact, we are both her and myself and Laura. We are also part of the the Conscious Awakening Network. So we have some commonalities here. Laurie Wheeler. And for those of you that like to surf the internet while you are watching and listening, her website, I think is, I hope I got that right, lauriewheeler.com.
No, it's wellnesswithin.net.
Oh, yeah, wellnesswithin.net. That's what it is. Okay, now she is a luminary futurist and a catalyst for self mastery, and she's been doing that for 30 years. Her work carries on the multi-dimensional effects for the higher purpose for each one of the ones that she's dealing with. And she also worked with several meditations, and she does homeopathy, soul regression hypnotherapy, and a Rife technology for healing. She also is a medical intuitive, and she deals with codes for DNA recalibration. And that one needs some explanation. I wanna ask her about that because I think most people could need that. And she's also an author and international speaker on the speaking circuit. And by her company, Spirit adventure tours. She take people on journeys to sacred places like Stonehenge, Egypt, Peru, and many other places. So, without any more, I want to welcome Laurie to the show. Welcome here.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here.
Oh, that's good. We're going to have some fun too,
We are.
because you have a lot of information. So, for the listeners out there, lend her your ear because there's pearls in here and you need to know about those pearls. I think the first thing is that we need to know a little more about you. Why in the world did you end up on this path, going down this oddball path instead of staying in the business world or doing like everybody else does? There had to be some incident that
Well, there
brought you
was.
here.
There definitely was. I call it a rude awakening. I was never really meant for what we call the business world. I've been channeling since I was 5, and I began channeling Yeshua when I was 5 years old, and I would have conversations with him. And I knew him very well at that age. And when I got older, I bought a piece of land in New York State, built a house, and come to find out it was native burial ground. And that all by itself is quite a happening. But what began to occur was I saw a spirit in my home, and I really didn't know what to do with that because it was kind of an unusual experience. And she would wander around the house, and my dog knew she was there. My kids could see shadows and such. And so I asked somebody what I could do about that, and they began to explain how to help her cross over. And so when they began to tell me, this was one aspect of my learning of how to cross spirits over. Then I had another happening where one day I was in the yard. We had a 13 acres. It was a long piece of property. And I was in the backyard, and one day I felt drawn to go in the uh, part of the yard that I never really took a walk in much, but I took a walk, and I leaned up against this tree. There was a tree that was just a very unusual tree. I leaned up against it, and I suddenly bilocated. Now, I never was instructed on how to do that. It just was a happening. But I didn't know what that really was at the time. See, you have to understand this was back in my very early 30s. I had no idea what that really was. I know today what it is, but I'll explain what it is. It's being in two locations at once. So I
Yeah.
was leaning up against the tree on my land. Simultaneously, I was taken to another place in time, another timeline, several hundred years, what we'll call prior. And there was a small Native American party because it was Native American land that I was living on. And, when you're in another timeline, it's in existence as the same time that you are in existence. It's just moving through time. And so when I saw this war party came upon this other tribe, and they killed many, many people. And so there were many souls that were mourning. And when I leaned up against the tree, I felt like I was taken to a funeral for hundreds of people that were mourning, but I didn't know any of them. And what happened was all of that mourning went into me like this, and it sucked right into my heart. And I could feel all of their sadness, but I didn't know any of these people. What an unusual experience to go through, and I didn't understand it completely.
Yeah.
So that was my first learning about other places, other timelines, and I call it a rude awakening because it really was. But I did from there learn a lot, and then I began to open to different spirits, And it was like everything was open and it just started to transmit to me. And now I am a transceiver, which is a receptor and a transmitter and also a translator of energy. So that's where I am today.
Wow, that must have been quite an experience. Holy moly.
It was, and try to tell
Yeah,
people, back then, 30 something years ago, what happened. They didn't understand, I didn't understand, so it took a lot of learning to really begin to know what my capabilities were, what was happening to me and such, yeah.
wow. Man, oh man, yeah. But you got from there and you got to learn more, you got more involved in the healing arts.
Mhm,
And
yes.
that's probably that is that where you spend most of your time now in the healing arts?
Yeah, a lot of my time, because I really believe energy is medicine for us. It is healing. It helps us move through that which is stagnant or that which needs to be disengaged.
Mhm.
And simultaneously, as that occurs, then we also change and adjust our frequencies to higher vibration and resonance, which then that's what we're all, those of you who are listening, what we're after, what we desire.
Mhm. Yeah. And when you're learning and growing more and deeper into the healing arts, what do you see happening? Can you feel something happening within yourself, opening up to new concepts that you never thought about before? I know you were doing homeopathy and right, and you are, I'm sure you're writing about this in your book. The book title is kind of good. I'm going to say it, and you will never ever forget that title. It is, "Oh no, not another learning experience." And you
Yeah.
find that on the Amazon?
Yes, you can find it on Amazon.
Okay,
Yes.
there's a lot of interesting stuff in there. Now you're doing a lot with homeopathy. Let's just talk about that for a little bit, and then later on, we're gonna touch on med beds because they are available. And we know that because we also know where they are available, and you can actually go and try it out. But first, I want to talk about homeopathy a little bit because I was born and raised in Europe, and I'm familiar with it from back there because there it was a common thing. And in some places, it still is common. It's just that we never hear about it in the United States
Mm,
because it's cheap, you know?
right. It is. It is. Yeah. It's I'm gonna begin by saying it's one of, in my opinion, the best medicines we have available to us. So throughout history, we've had different pandemics and such, and it always comes through. It heals beautifully. I've worked from colds to cancer, and I've had great results with everything in between. It is energy medicine that affects the mind and the body. And what I call, there are main threads that run through a person. It runs through the mind and it runs through the body. And it's the way we exhibit it, the shadow side and the light within us. And what needs to come back to balance. So it's not going to change a person, everything about a person. It's going to change just what's imbalanced in that person. And they begin to usually feel their, what we call the vital force, your chi, um, become more animated, more alive, more in the groove. And then slowly, things that are imbalanced, like physical things, fibromyalgia and asthmas and all different kinds of illnesses that we have names for. Um, it treats the symptoms, it doesn't treat the name of a disease. So each person is treated in a different way. So it's like no two people in a family, even though it's, you might have a cold, there's nothing common about the common cold because it's individualized as to how it represents in a person. So it's very specific, individualized specifics for that person. But I love it. It's always like I always feel like Sherlock Holmes investigating and unlocking the secrets. And usually, what people say after the initial consult is that they learned so much about themselves. There's already healing taking place. So I love to hear that, and
Mhm.
that gets me excited when I see the changes occur for people.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember back when I was a little kid, probably at 7 or 8 years old or something like that. My mom took, I had pimples. I had so much of it, I looked like one big pimple. And my mom took me to they, I guess, translated the word to shaman, but he
Yeah.
also had the homeopathy remedies. And she took me there, and he gave me something. And I think over the next few weeks, the pimples went away,
Mhm.
but they came back quite a bit later. But they went away, so there is no arguing about these things does work. Just don't ask a doctor because they don't know anything about it.
Mhm. No, they don't because they don't understand that it's all energy, and energy is coded information. And when you take certain information and you match it, then it creates a catalyst for a reaction of change. And we can talk a little bit about that as well. So, yeah. It's important way to change because it's true healing. Real healing is that symptoms change and they go away permanently. In other words, they're not suppressed back into the system, but they go away. And you can tell when there's healing because it changes in the mind and the body. That's how we're clear that it is changing.
Yeah, and when there's an imbalance in the body, it will give a reaction somewhere.
Yes. Yes,
That's
definitely.
what we call disease, isn't it?
Yes, yes, it's dis-ease, right, exactly,
Yeah.
or imbalance, sure.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Now,
mhm.
you were doing homeopathy. You've done that for a long time, but you
Yeah,
also done
37
something
years.
with electromedicine, like Royal Rife equipment.
Yes, yes,
Isn't that amazing? In the late 1930s and 40s and early 50s, they
mhm,
cured just about everything with
mm,
this,
mhm.
and then it went dead.
Yeah. Yeah, well, anything like that is a threat in many ways to our society. So, but yes, Dr. Royal Rife, he had a microscope, and under the microscope, he was able to tell that cancer was a virus. Now, this is back in the 20s and or earlier possibly. And then he developed this machine called the Rife machine, and he put in frequencies, which are codes, right? Coded information for each particular problem or illness. And you hold the machine, and it sends signals, and it eradicates. So, in other words, it destroys what is connected to that particular frequency that you no longer want in your system. So viruses and such. And he had something like, oh, I don't even know, 3,000 patients that had cancer, all of them cured. And I can say that boldly. I'm not afraid to say it at all.
Yeah. I have a manual that has most of his research in it. It
Mm,
is 2,400 pages, that thick. And we have the frequencies and everything because I had one of those frequency generators when I was back in Omaha. And we did some really neat stuff with it. And I would say that he was brilliant because he developed a telescope that magnifies much more than any, I said telescope, microscope, that was more bigger than anything at the time. And he was able to see each cell And he sat there and turned the knob and changed the frequency until they found the one frequency he called the mortal oscillatory rate. And that rate affected the cell so it exploded and killed
Exactly.
it.
Mhm.
And this he ended up finding the mortal oscillatory rate for pretty much all the viruses that existed at the time, as
Yeah.
well as bacteria. They had the same mortal oscillatory rate.
Yeah.
And this was so effective.
It is.
But
It is.
yeah,
It's
I
like,
just,
it's like when an opera singer shatters a glass, reaches a certain octave, and that's a certain frequency, and then it explodes. It's the same kind of understanding.
yeah. And the head of the medical establishment at the time, Mr. Fishbane, he made a statement in an interview. He said, I think we have found the cure for all disease. And then he wanted to become partners with
Mm,
Rife to
mm,
develop this. And Rife told him, no, I don't want you. You're not an honest man. I don't want you as a partner.
mm,
So Fishbane turned on him, destroyed him, destroyed the laboratory with sledgehammers, and put him in prison, and he died in prison.
mm, mm.
This is just a sad story.
Yeah, it's like all the greats, Tesla too. So when we look at these people are so far advanced in their work and understanding, and how they're sort of what we call snuffed out, so to speak.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man, oh man. But I think that's going to change now, isn't it?
I think so. I think what it is, there are enough people that know enough right now that are working to bring this technology forward, and more people every day waking up, and the innovation that's coming forward, is it's coming fast and furious, and it's exciting to see, because we are stretching in leaps and bounds now. And I really think it has a lot to do with what is waking within us, what we are remembering. And I know myself, that's what's happening for me as well. And I can't get enough of it. I could sit all day and just work on the technology, because it's exciting. It
Yeah.
it tickles me. It's so exciting. Yeah, I love it.
I have great expectations from Kennedy. I think he's going to do,
I hope so.
I,
Yeah.
yeah, I think at least he speaks the language. And I think that he's going after the source of
Yeah.
all the cover ups in medicine. Not just the symptoms, he's going after the source. And you know where that ends up, that
Yeah.
backs at the pharmaceutical companies. So,
Yeah.
because
Yeah. He's
they pay,
taking on a big one. Yeah.
yeah, they're paying everybody else. I mean, even during the last pandemic, doctors got paid big money for
Mhm,
everyone that got this thing in their arm. That just each one of them they got paid for. So
mhm.
there was an incentive there, and that is just almost, I don't know about almost, but it's criminal.
Yeah, it keeps us distracted and divided while they're making their profit
Yeah.
off of our pain and our problems and our lack of healing. Um,
Hmm.
so we have to figure a better way to heal, something that they cannot grab a hold of. And I'd like to share a little bit about that at some point. Yeah.
Yeah, please do speak on it.
Yeah. So right now, I'm working with a quantum biologist, Dr. Glenn Ryan, and there are others that have worked with him. He's very well published. You can look him up. He's got a boatload of information that he's worked on for years. He's a quantum biologist. We're working in research science, and the study of subtle energies and how they affect DNA and water. And so, because I am able to not only see and hear it through my senses of information of what I transmit, but then I transmit it into DNA. And so as we're doing this, we're checking the electrical conductivity that's going on in the DNA and the water and that. And so he measures the data prior, and then I transmit, and then we measure it after. And so as we've done this, I've had a lot of interesting occurrences, and so I've transmitted masters like Mary Magdalene, the Arcturian commander Ashtar, let's see, emissaries of light. I work with galactic codes that are taken from 5 different star groups, and they've culminated together. So I've transmitted that. I've transmitted from the light beings that I work with, that I speak light language through, and so numerous others. And so we've quantified our research, and one of the aspects that we've learned is that when I transmit the light in, what happens to the DNA? It, first of all, DNA moves. It has. I'm reminded continually, it has to do with the way DNA moves, the way energy moves, the way light particles move, waves, and such, and patterns and things. This is a very important aspect of the work we're doing. And um, so as it's transmitting, it's also been an opportunity to, one day I was working in one part of the room, he was working in another, and we had an incident. I usually work with my eyes closed, I'm not paying attention. He's working on his computer, and his computer screen goes down. And this is where I'd like to show that little video, if that's okay.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
You
and
you
I'll explain what this is. So his computer screen goes down, it turns, all the data goes away that he was working on. His screen turns pink, and these orbs of light show up and begin to pulse. So I'm going to just show that.
Yeah. Go
Oh,
ahead. Share screen on that and bring that up so we can watch it.
okay, so it's only 10 seconds,
Okay.
but layers, I think. Each one having to do a specific. Okay, so you can see. What, okay, I guess.
Yeah, that was
Stop
just
share.
orbs.
Yeah, orbs,
Yeah.
right? Orbs of light showing up on the computer, and I asked them what they showed up for. Why were they there? And they said to me that they picked this particular time as we were doing our research to let us know that I was in the right frequency, that they were listening, that they were transmitting. Anytime the light transmits, it transmits truth, and it is adjusting the DNA. That was that was quite something, because that's never happened before. And to have that information readily, available while we're working on this, uh, it was I was pretty excited about that, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has it happened since?
No, it just happened the one time. Um, but when I do work, I am able to see um, molecules and the compounds and the structures of molecules. Now, I'm not a scientist. I don't have physics in my background. I am a homeopath, but I know very little about physics itself. Probably one of the classes I fell asleep in school, and so I'm really not aware of the way the molecules are put together, the structures of them. And so I'm able to see the structure, I can tell exactly what it is, and then I can look it up and find out what is that compound. And that information is very important to what it is changing in the water or in the DNA. Um, Yeah, and then I've also had a time where when we were working together where I had taken a journey. They took me deep into the codes, took me deep into a place up on Sirius. It's another timeline that I am in right now, and I work in a lab with others there, and we are working on self-regeneration. And what this entails is they've given me a lot of information about biophotons, which is the light in our cells. They've given me information about bioluminescence, plasma, fluorescing, centrifuge, all this information that I didn't know anything about until I started to really hear more about it and then ask the scientist about it and also doing my own research about it. But what I've come to understand is that they're telling me from Sirius that we have the capability to self-regenerate. That
Yeah.
means without any influence other than our own influence, not using you're not going to somebody, not using a machine, nothing. This is where our medicine is going to go. In the next 10 years, we are going to have this capability of self regeneration, and there's a process to it.
Yeah.
This is exciting stuff, really exciting stuff. If you can imagine that your own healing that it takes place in your own self, that we are that powerful, that we have that much light. If you understand about light and understand biophotonics is the light within the cells and where this comes from, and how this affects us, and that there is light. Bioluminescence is a light, and it's very common in ocean animals, ocean creatures. It's rare on the land, but something like a jellyfish actually is bioluminescent, and it has the ability to regenerate itself as well. The
Yeah.
problem is science doesn't know, doesn't understand how this really happens completely. So they're working on it, and I believe they're going to find the answers to it. Simultaneously, I am working in this lab receiving information as well. And I'm very excited because the more I learn, the more excited I become about it.
Hmm.
It's fascinating to me. I can't, like I said, I can't get enough of it. Um, yeah, our own plasma fluoresces, and what that means is it converts electricity to light. So our own system has this capability. We actually fluoresce our own cells, but you really can't see it unless it's with a black light. So in the broad daylight, we really don't see this, that we have this capability, but we do. It's fascinating, and
Yeah.
there's there is a Russian scientist. His name is Peter Garyev. He placed DNA inside a quartz container and he zapped it with a laser. So the DNA, it absorbed light and it stored it for up to 30 days inside a corkscrew shaped spiral in an exact blueprint of light reflecting the DNA pattern. So what's even beyond more interesting than that is that the spiral of light stayed in the same place even after the quartz container and the DNA had been removed. So, what this really suggests is that the energy force is holding the light in place in the field. It's imprinting. We're proving it's imprinting. This has a lot to do with taking us forward into self regeneration.
Hmm. Excellent. Yeah. And I see now that we are at the bottom of the hour. And for those of you that joined us late, we are talking with Laurie Wheeler. And we are talking about, yeah, self-generation. And we're talking about a lot of other things that deals with healing and the future of medicine. We're going to touch on just in a little bit. She's the author of a book, You never forget the title. It's Oh No, Not Another Learning Experience. Okay, go to Amazon and have a look, and you can read about these things that she's talking about because there are pearls in there, and we can do some amazing things once we have the knowledge. So, yes. And I mentioned before also that actually, before we even started the show, that med beds are actually available right now. I know that for a fact because there's a place in Germany I know of where they have them. You can go in there, you can book a session, you lay down, and I'm not so sure they have the technology for a 60-year-old man to get in there and come back out looking 22. I'm not so sure they have that yet, but they have right frequency, they have sound, and they clean out the body of virus and bacteria that is harmful to the body. And there are other things they do. They repair eyesight, by the way. They do other things in that med bed. So, and when I mentioned that, you, Laura, you already heard about this also.
Yes, because the scientist I work with, Dr. Glenn Ryan, we were working in Boston one day in his lab, and he works with a company, or he did, I'm not sure if he still does. He worked with a company from Germany, and they gave him a med bed to do a lot of testing and work up data on it and that. And I got to sit on one, and I can just tell you what it did is I wasn't sick at the time or had any problem at the time, but what it did is it elevated my sensory. So it heightened everything to a different degree. And it is an amazing experience. Anything that really has this capacity to raise our frequency, to help us resonate at a higher level of energy is it's worth trying for sure.
Yeah. You know, the rumor on the street is that there's four different kinds of med beds. And this is probably the number one and two of them, I
Mhm.
would think, because you hear rumors about stuff from the secret space program where they are bringing people back after their 20 years in service so they look like they when they started and stuff like that. I'm still struggling with that a little bit, but I'm
Mhm.
open to it because I know there are no limitations to science if it is given free rein.
Mm.
So if it isn't here in the United States yet, there are places in Europe where you can get it, and they will be here. So if you have a sore toe that won't heal, just hang in there, just wait. There will be a remedy. So I am totally optimistic about that. I would love to talk about something else also. Where do you see medical science and medical treatment, as we calling it, including cures now, 10 years from now, 20, 50 years from now? What do you see happening?
I'm told through my channeling that in the next 10 years, science is going to make some major breakthroughs, and we're not going to see our physical system the same way. We're going to understand it more as an energy body. Science is really beginning to make these breakthroughs now so that what we're doing, the technology, even for, and I hate to say this, chemo and radiation is changing as well, but that may not even be needed or in effect any longer because that's destruction to a lot of the body, where energy is about targeting, disengaging, or destroying that which no longer is needed in the body or should not be there, that the body, it's not natural to the system. And so we are really changing and moving into more of energy medicine over time. It will become far more acceptable than it is now. It won't be just at the level of certain people and understanding, but science is going to make these breakthroughs. So I think it's going to be a very exciting time.
Yeah. I also, when it comes to chemo and those things, if you go to the American Medical Association's own website, they tell you right there that it's got a failure ratio of about
Yeah.
96%. Why
Yeah.
would anybody do that when you get a 96% chance of failure within a 5 year time? So
I
I'm
think they do
losing.
because they're afraid, that they're afraid to trust what we cannot see. And so that's where they become reliant on what they can see and what medicine has proven, so to speak.
Well, I'm a little more conspiratorial than the average bear. So I'm going to say it a little different. The doctors that is using chemo, they get huge payments for each bag that they put into you. The money is so big, there is no way they're going to stop. They're going to sell their soul before they will stop doing it. Unless, of course, Kennedy fixes it.
I think too, our physical body, our genome is changing. The more light that comes in, the more information that is held in the matrix, the cosmic web. It holds all our thoughts, experiences, everything. And so as we begin to understand, like for myself, what I'm able to see what that is and find those stagnant or places that should not be there any longer. They don't harmonize with the rest of the field. And so for me, it's a little bit like a wormhole. It's about opening it up and understanding what it is and why it's there and changing the perspective, helping to change the perspective to it is what it really is about. Once we do that, it moves in a different fashion. And again, this is what I'm told a lot about in my channeling and the work that I do with the galactics and the light is it has a lot to do with the way energy moves and the way light moves and the way sound moves. It's all about the streaming and the patterns and the waves and what they do with us and for us. So it's a it's a divine intelligence that's going on that we cannot even really see, and it's in our biofield, and this is where healing begins to occur for us in multi levels, many levels of ourselves. So the more we understand about energy, the smarter we become about it, the more we utilize it, the stronger and different our own genome becomes. And we also know that the two strands, as more electrical conductivity enters into the strands and they begin to repair themselves, they begin to create a toroidal field, and they're changing and activating more strands as this happens. So I think this is where we're going in our near future. I don't think it's too far down the road. In fact, it's now, but becoming maybe more mainstream over time.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, I'm seeing it too. And if people knew what chemo is, that liquid mustard gas. The mustard gas was invented before the First World War to kill people.
Right.
It's still killing people. So no, and I hear doctors now are saying that the people that do not take it, they usually live longer than the ones that do. So medical science will advance whether they like it or not. It's going to come to a position where we will have a choice. Chemo might be there, and that's okay. If people want to do it, then absolutely go for it. But there's going to be other things. There's going to be homeopathy. There's going to be nutritional things, and there's going to be things that we may not have even thought of. It's coming.
It's true. When we were up, I did a retreat. I took some people up to Mount Shasta, and we were up in one of the portals, Telos, which is the Lemurian area. And um, the gatekeeper of Lemuria, of Telos, came above and had a conversation with me. One of the things that he began to explain is that there are people that are learning right now to help us learn how to be with our food. Like when we sit down to eat, we don't think of ourselves as one with our food. We don't think about our food holding the light. We eat dead food. I do too. So I do. I'm not saying I'm any better or worse or anything, but I try to eat a lot of live food. Like I have towers that I grow my own food and I pick my own live food. So I know it has high, dense nutrients to it. It's alive when I eat it. Um, whatever, so if you stop and think about photosynthesis, it's the light that changes in the plant and creates more energy in that plant, right? So if you're eating plants that are alive and not dead, you are receiving that light. If you go out and eat a dead animal, okay, it's a little bit different. There's not as much light and it doesn't have the nutrients. And just think about this is what the gatekeeper, I call him Mr. G, came and was talking to us about that we are going to think different. And there are people that are really being trained right now that are going to help us think and come into our food in a different way. And the diseases will change as a result of this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do something goofy every time I sit down for dinner. I sit down and I bless the food.
Mm, mm, yeah,
And think of it this way too. Humans are the only species on earth that cook their food before we eat it. Think of it also. When you
yeah,
cook the food, you kill all the, well, most of the enzymes.
yeah,
Enzymes are so important for the body.
absolutely.
You never seen a monkey running through the treetop with a hibachi on his back, have you? No. We're the one that cook the food and we kill it before we eat it. How stupid is that?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
It
do. I do too.
it
Once in
does.
a
Yeah,
while.
it changes this the molecular structure and compound of the particular
Yeah,
food that we're eating, and it reconfigures it. It reconfigures the atoms. It rearranges it, and not in a good way when we cook our food. Yeah, because cooking is heat, and heat is thermal, and thermal is one of the ways that we activate. So we want to, it's like if you stop and think about when you heat water, liquid, water, and you get the vapor. So it's changing the structure of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of water, we should structure the water before we drink it.
Yes, and we can
Uh,
do that.
yeah, we can. Blessing it is one way to do it.
Yeah.
Keep magnetite in a water jug. Magnetite will structure the water. If you put crystals in it, it'll structure the water for you. There's so many different ways.
Yeah.
And just by heating the water up, you change the bonding angle between the H and the O
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that
You're
the
right.
body
It,
does not necessarily recognize it as good for us.
Yeah, well, H2O, we're not H2O, even though we're made up primarily of water. We're made up of structured water. So when you
Yeah,
drink or have structured water, the body is more accepting of it. And then besides that, there are many chemicals and such in our water as
yeah,
well. And I'll just add a tidbit. Anybody that has chlorine in their water, if you leave your water, if you pour the water into a jug or you take filtered water and you leave it on the counter open for a period of time and drink from that open container, eventually the chlorine dissipates out of that water.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I have a water filtering system to take care of that. And another thing too, most cities have fluoride in the water. Highly recommend find a filter, put it somewhere when you run the water through the filter that take out the fluoride. Fluoride is one of the most toxic substances on earth, and they put it in your drinking water.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Talk a little bit about your book also. What will people find in that book when they get it?
Well, it begins with what I told my story about what happened on the land. And it's a compilation of things that have happened to me in my life, things that have happened to other people. It takes it asks questions at the end of each chapter, sort of insightful questions for us to ask ourselves, because oftentimes we don't ask ourselves these questions. um, Different things that have happened to me that have been challenges, but that how I've overcome them. And I put that in there because I wanted people to understand everybody goes through these challenges, but how do we overcome them? And how do we become empowered through it? And then some of my clients and the different regressions that I've done, and they've found themselves in different places and what has occurred for them in these different places. And so I like to bring a little bit of that. And then the last chapter is about it's not easy being green. And what I mean by that is, and there was a little frog that was so genius in saying that, but it's not easy being different. And, I know that also well because I was the odd one in my family. I've been the odd one many, 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 many years, all my life. And it used to bother me when I was younger, like, why was I so different? What was I doing different or doing wrong? But it wasn't that I was being wrong, I was being me. I just was different than other people around me. And then I came to realize that being different was just okay because I was just being me. And this is who I am. This is how it is to be me or you or anyone else. These are my gifts, my capabilities. We all have these special aspects within us. It's important for us to find out what they are. Sometimes it's important to find out where you're from so that you understand who you are a little bit better. And that's also what I write about in the book. So it's a compilation of many different
Mhm.
discoveries, so to speak.
You mentioned regression, and I wanted to have you touch on that because you do soul regression hypnotherapy, or maybe
Yeah.
also other hypnotherapy. Talk a bit about how can you help people if they have different challenges? How can you help them with hypnosis?
Well, hypnosis is a wonderful way. So I say all hypnosis is self hypnosis. You do it every single day, falling asleep and waking up. It's just a matter of going through the lower brain waves. Everybody does it. So let's get rid of I can't do it because you can do it. Okay. So the only thing is you stopping you. And what that is a matter of trust. So if you trust, if you listen to the voice, you listen to the guidance of the voice, you will go in. Um, and what it does is it takes you into a place where the chatter of the mind, just like as you're falling asleep, the chatter of your mind quiets down and then it opens up the other aspects of the self. And then we know we actually travel while we're sleeping as well. But also, what's been held deep within you starts to creep up because it gets to have a voice at that time. And so when we do hypnosis, we have a set of intention so that it guides us as to what we're going to go in and accomplish. And so in those lower brain waves, you're much more receptive to change. And then most people actually have visual as well. So if you can envision something different than what you already perceive, because it's all about perception. If you perceive the sky is blue, then the sky is blue, according to you. But if you perceive it gray, then you're going to see it in a different way. So as you are perceiving, we begin to change your perceptions through the power of suggestion, where the higher guidance takes you in a past life, or I'll include a between lives is very different because many people do not do between lives, they do past life. Between life is going to a past life, changing and adjusting that, and then going on to meet your higher self, your master guide. Um, those are aspects of that many people have never even experienced. Meeting your high self is something that that's probably one of the favorite aspects of this, because it's you without your baggage, without the illusions you carry. It's most times it's described as this place of bliss that you do not want to leave because it's such a beautiful experience. But this is us in our magnificence of our soul, that we get to experience who we are. So, having that, then going on to meet your council. Who are the elders that are around your council? Where are you placed amongst them? And asking your counsel about guidance, and then going on to the akashics and understanding about something that is held in the akashics that is important for you to understand. So there's so much to be explored through a hypnosis, and people are never the same after. If you go to my website, there's testimonial after testimonial about people and what they've experienced. I know myself, I've experienced great things, and I always will remember them. They have changed my life. So I can't say enough about it. It's a beautiful experience to
Yeah,
do a
yeah,
regression. Yeah.
yeah. Let us know, how can they get a hold of you?
They can go to my website, wellnesswithin.net, and I offer a free 20-minute consult for people that may want to just tell me a little bit about what they want to achieve, and I can tell them how I can help them with that within the modalities I work with.
Mhm. Are you on Facebook and other places also?
I am. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
Mm,
Yeah, and
okay.
of course, Conscious Awakening Network.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And then your book is on Amazon, and can they get the book through the website also?
Yes, they can. Yep,
Perfect.
and
Sounds good.
to check out the Spirit Adventure tours, if you're interested in going on a retreat that will change your life, and I promise it will, because when we go places, magic happens. Last year, when we were in south of France following the Magdalene footpath, we were invited to Nostradamus's house. That was not on our itinerary. So I promise we always have something very special that happens for us. And that has to do with our frequencies.
All right. Was Michel Nostradam home?
No, well, he was there. I got to meet him, but his caretaker of the home, fifth generation of his lineage, was there, and just an
Really?
enjoyable person.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. Okay, well, gosh, we're down to the end here, but I sure appreciate this. Was fun.
This
This was
was.
fun. There's so much more to talk about. Maybe sometime we can get you back.
I'd love to.
All
There's
right,
so
that
much more
sounds.
to share.
Yeah, there is. Okay, then. So until now, if you like what you hear, please subscribe. That'll help us a lot. And and then until next time. be good to each other.
Mm, mm.
Well, Mike, we're done.
I imagine it's pretty late there. Huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I bet.
Well, what we can do, we can just, it is being stored on his computer, so we can just get out and then he will, he did the recording, so we're good.
Okay. Thank you, Augie, for hosting me on your program. It's really been a delight. I really appreciate it and enjoyed speaking with you.
I've enjoyed it too. Just a shame that Nori could not be with us. This will be right up her alley. So,
Yeah. Well, maybe another time.
yeah, maybe next time. Okay,
Okay.
then we will talk again.
Okay. Very good. Thank you so much.